Today we're going to look at SD 46.19, and if there is time we'll also look at 46.20 because the two suttas are closely connected. The first sutta here, SD 46.19, on page 158, is called Ekaka Sangha Veda Sutta, the one's discourse on schism in the Sangha. The original title of the sutta is simply Sangha Veda. Now, it's not a very happy word because here it talks about disunity. Veda means to break up, to split. There are more than one sutta with this name, so I've put in the prefix Ekaka, the ones, just to more sure which sutta we are referring to. That is IT 18, okay? Iti Vittaka, Sutta 18. Sutta Vittaka is one of the 15 books in the small collection, the fifth Nikaya. Interestingly, it is a set of suttas remembered by a hunchback servant of the queen Samavati. So she became a saint listening to the Buddha, and it's a very unique collection of teachings memorized by a woman who's not even a nun, she's a lay woman, a slave girl in fact. So in this sutta, of course, the Buddha warns us of the danger of disunity in the Sangha, which can be very real. In fact, even in the Buddha's time, there were such dangers. Then there's another sutta, which is IT 19, which is a happy version of it. Sangha Samadhi Sutta. Sangha Samadhi. Magga means path. Samadhi, we can say those who are going the same path. Or we can translate as concord, unity. So this is Sutta IT number 19, the benefits of harmony in the Sangha. So we have the suttas come in pairs, in other words. One is on disunity, the other is on unity and harmony. You will notice in the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha gives a wide range of teachings, from the most mundane things like living a happy life for lay people, how to spend your money wisely, to how a monk should practice the rules, practice meditation, and how to attain nirvana. Right? So we have a wide range of teachings, so that the sasana or the Buddha's teaching will last. In fact, the Buddha's teaching amazingly has lasted for 2,500 years down to our own time, with the teachings resembling very closely to what the Buddha himself has taught. Although some scholars express doubt about this, they say, how do we know it's really what the Buddha has taught us? The proof, as we say, is in the pudding. When we taste it, the Dhamma we know. The peace of mind, the calmness, the healing effect, and the wisdom that comes with it. And from there we know the teaching works. And of course, the harmlessness of Buddhism, the peacefulness of Buddhism is unparalleled in world history. Of course, it's not to say that in Buddhism today there are no problems. Of course there are problems, because Buddhism has grown so big that we have all kinds of people in it, some not so well versed in the Dharma, in the suttas, so they get involved with politics and so on. So we have those kinds of issues too. But it's like, we have a local fruit called a durian, which has got very sharp thorns outside. And but the content, the fruit inside is very sweet and very soft, and they can be quite expensive depending on the kind of fruit we buy. So Buddhism is something like that. it seems to be full of thorns outside, lots of problems and difficulties. But you got to split open this durian in order to get to the really sweet flesh of the fruit. Another interesting thing about the durian is that you cannot pluck this fruit. You have to wait there. So people who have durian trees or plantations, they will have to employ jagas, they have to employ watchmen, caretakers to just be in the plantation. And the moment they hear, anytime this durian can drop in the middle of the night, and that's when they harvest the durian. You can pluck it. You pluck it, it won't be nice to eat. So, and the durian takes like 7 years to really ripen. So you have a magical number 7 there again. So we know, we talk about 7 years, 7 lifetimes to, for a stream winner. Within 7 years, 7 lifetimes, we will attain awakening. And also, you can't force wisdom to arise. You let it grow naturally. And in meditation, we're often told, you can't force your meditation. There are some very beautiful teachings about meditation. For example, the Buddha says, if you keep your precepts well, you don't have to make any effort in your meditation. You just sit and peace will come. In other words, it's a kind of effortlessness. That's another way of talking about letting go, nikkamma, of renunciation. The moment we sit down to meditate, we are a monk or a nun. We are letting go of the world. The world are our 5 physical senses with the mind, and that's number 6. We're letting them go. And when we attain deep peace of mind, at that moment we have attained bhikkhu bhava, the state of a monk, peacefulness. So there are different words all talking about the same thing, peace of mind. As long as you understand this kind of teaching, of course the Sangha is happy and harmonious and unified, but this is not always the case. Even in the Buddha's time, for various reasons, you find some monks may not be happy, some are very powerful, they want to take over the Buddha's place. We have to remember that the Buddha himself came from the Kshatriya clan. They're warriors, they're noblemen. So you can imagine when the Buddha's foster mother wanted to become a nun, how tricky the situation is. We have the second most powerful Shakya, that is the wife of the king, King Suddhodana, who had died, and she wanted to become a nun. So if people hear the queen has become a nun, people may have the wrong idea. Some might become nuns for the wrong idea. And of course there's a danger that the queen herself might still think that she's the queen, and so you have a lot of problems that way. And for that reason the Buddha introduced some rather strict rules to prevent this kind of situation, so that there is no misunderstanding that the Buddha is favoring his foster mother and so on. So the idea is, if someone becomes a monk or a nun, there's only one purpose: to renounce the world for the sake of awakening. And indeed, Mahapajapati Gautami practiced the Vinaya, practiced the Dharma, and became awakened, became one of the great nuns. We don't hear much about her teachings except some collection in the Therigatha and the Apadana, but we know she became one of those great women arahats. So, of course, there's not always this happy situation. There are, for example, the stories of Devadatta who tried to break up the Sangha and so on. And so the question now is, when is the Sangha broken up? Or why is there such a great danger if the Sangha breaks up? When is the Sangha broken up? Now, we have very clear guidelines here. In fact, there's a lot to talk. So I'm only summarizing the main points, or lots of notes here for you to read if you want the details. I'm talking more on the Dhamma side, not so much Vinaya, although we have to mention some Vinaya which are also found in the suttas. Now on page 162, there's a mention here, one of the dangers that can bring about disunity. That is when the Dhamma speaker speaks the wrong thing, or when someone speaks the wrong Dhamma. So there are 18 points. I'll just go through them very quickly. So this person explains what is not Dharma as Dharma. What is not the Buddha's teaching to be the Dharma. And what is Dharma as not Dharma. So in other words, just kind of turning things around. What is Vinaya as not Vinaya. In other words, what is the monastic rules as not so. So you can do what you like. And what is not Vinaya as Vinaya. Right? Something, say, the way of the world for the monk to practice. What is not spoken, not uttered by the Tathagata as being so. What the Buddha did not say, they put words in his mouth. Now, you hear a lot about this in today's world. And on the light side, if you surf the internet or Facebook, you'll find lots of what are called fake Buddha sayings. And there are even people who specialize in writing these fake Buddha sayings, and there are people who specialize in exposing them. It's really wonderful. They simply say, Buddha said this, Buddha said that. They never tell us where those sayings come from. Many of those sayings do reflect some truth, but even then we should say, okay, this saying is based on this particular sutta and so on. We can't just say Buddha said this, Buddha said that. And we are misrepresenting the Buddha, which is very wrong. And then all this come in pairs. Okay, so the next one is we declare what is spoken by the Buddha as not being spoken by him. What is the habit of the Buddha? What the Buddha does in his daily life, we say as not being so. We are just saying the opposite, that the Buddha didn't do this thing. For example, the Buddha didn't meditate every day, something like that. And what is not the habit of the Buddha, for example, handling money, it is not the habit of the Buddha. We say it is the habit of the Buddha. We even one scholar who says the Buddha was a businessman. I don't know what gave him the idea. So we have lots of wrong views today in the world about the Buddha. Next, number 9, what has not been promulgated by the Tathagata, he explains as being so. What the Buddha did not teach, he declares this, the Buddha did teach these things. And what has not been, the first one is not promulgated by the Buddha. The second one is what is promulgated, what has been taught by the Buddha. This person said the Buddha did not teach it. And then the rest deal with the Vinaya. What is not an offense, this person declared to be an offense, and what is an offense to be not so. What is a light offense, he declares it to be a grave offense. What is a grave, serious offense, to be a light one. What is a remedial offense which can be corrected, he declares to be the other way around. What cannot be corrected to be remedial, to be able to be corrected. A serious offense declares a light offense, and a light offense declared is a serious offense. These are all the kind of Vinaya strictures which you can look up in your own time. So basically here, the people who talk about Buddhism do not examine the Vinaya carefully, examine the suttas carefully. With their limited knowledge, they make such statements, and it confuses the people, misleads the people. It doesn't help anyone in attaining inner peace. The purpose of Buddhism is to attain inner peace. So this is the basis, first basis if you like. Then, now the question is, when does the split actually occur? This is when we have duly ordained monks, properly ordained monks. Interestingly, that the nuns are not involved here, it's the monks. This is found on page 165, section 325. The first thing is this group of monks, they break away from the main Sangha and they perform their own formal act, a karma. Okay, that means they get together. It's like a parliament. They perform something in the name of the sangha, and they effectively declare they are the parliament. It's just like a country has one parliament, but a group of people go somewhere else and declare they are the parliament of the country. So it's very similar. So once that is done, one is reciting the words of the act, there is a split already. And then number 2, they recite the monks' rules. Udesa is to recite. Number 3 is to make a statement, right? Maybe somebody says it out openly, right? Or vahara, openly. And then there is a proclamation here, anusava. In other words, you tell people and it's passed on. And then by a vote, ticket vote, by voting. So you notice here there are lots of technicality. It's very clearly defined how the Sangha can be split. In some very interesting ways, these are the early makings of democratic kind of government, of governance, if you like. So when the Dharma, the Vinaya are misrepresented, when groups of monks perform their own kind of rituals, especially reciting the Patimokkha, for example, and ordaining monks, we have a split. Now, if we define it that way, we can say ever since soon after the Buddha has passed away, we have these groups of monks gathered together and they decided to form their own sangha. You might say the split already started. So, in a sense, even today you find the split is there. For example, if you have in the same area, let's say in Singapore, or to make it more technical, we can say, let's say in Jurong, just Jurong area, you have a temple there, but technically all the monks should come to the main temple. They have those what's called a sima, a border marking the convocation hall, the Uposatha hall, the actual monastery where the monks assemble to recite the rules. All the other monks should come to that one conclave, and that shows unity. Okay. Of course, there are other monasteries over different areas, parishes as we call them today. So these are, of course, designated, agreed to. So whichever parish you live in, you go to the monastery in that area, then of course that's fine. But if there is already one main temple in one parish, and then a group of monks decide to perform their own recitation somewhere else, then that constitutes kind of disunity, even a Sangha Beda. So, and these are very serious matters because it means the Sangha is not unified. So what's the big deal about the Sangha not being unified? If the Sangha is not unified, then it will fail to teach the Dharma. People will be confused, there will be groups, and there will be no harmony. Right? And what's interesting is today you find there is harmony. Buddhists generally do not fight each other, although they come in different groups. But there are different beliefs, very, very different beliefs. For example, the Theravada sees the Buddha as a human being. He has passed away, but the Mahayana sees the Buddha as a kind of divine being and kind of sees him as eternal, as living. The historical Buddha was not a real person. He is a projection of some cosmic Buddha, very similar to the Brahmanical idea of the Brahman, a kind of Atman in the sky or in the heavens, and then there is this projection of the Buddha. There's no such thing at all in early Buddhism, and this is called asceticism. So early Buddhism rejects it. So we have issues like that, which are very difficult to reconcile. So we have to be very clear what is it that we want to follow, whether early Buddhism or some other later teachings. So, the dangers are listed in the sutta. It's a very short sutta here. The sutta itself is given on page 174. The one's discourse on Schism in the Sangha, IT 18. This was indeed spoken by the Blessed One, spoken by the Arahat, the Worthy One. Thus have I heard. So this opening is standard, spoken by the Kujutara. Bhikshus. So here Kujutara is quoting the Buddha. Bhikshus, the one thing, the one Dharma arising in the world arises not for the good of the many, not for the happiness of the many, not for the benefit of the many, for the suffering of gods and humans. Notice, here it's not just human beings, it even affects the heavens. What is the one thing? What is this one thing that when it happens in the world is not good? A schism, a split in the Sangha Veda. For bhikshus, when the Sangha is split, there are not only quarrels amongst one another, but also abusing of one another, and disdaining of one another, and rejecting of one another. In such a situation, those lacking faith only remains faithless, and some of the faithful become otherwise. So these two are really serious problems. If the monks are not unified, or worse, if they quarrel among themselves, then those who are uncertain about religion will never turn to religion, will never have faith in the Dharma. And if they don't have faith, they will not be keeping the precepts, they will not be meditating, and they will be suffering, they will be contributing to more suffering in the world. And those who are already practicing, already Buddhist, they too might be wandering, they too might lose faith. So in other words, the seed is lost, and the plant is not given all the necessary conditions to grow. And I think all the members of the Sangha, or whichever group today, whether it's Theravada, Mahayana or Vajrayana, they know this. So because of historical differences, you have all these different groups of Buddhist teachings arising. There is this universal friendship, kind of fellowship among the Buddhists, although they have different groups. So it's a very tricky situation here. Of course, there are also efforts to discover and to accept common teachings among all these different schools. For example, there are efforts by some concerned monk to revive the order of the nuns. So to do this, they can't use any, there are no Theravada nuns around, so they have to look for a tradition who still have the nuns, for example in the Mahayana order in China. Right? So they try to reconnect with the past in this way. So this is one interesting way where you can still see the samadhi, the fellowship and the connection from the past. So it's really up to the monks and nuns of today how they want to see the situation, how they want to connect together again despite the differences. That will be a great blessing to our practice today. And I hope too, that with the availability, accessibility of the suttas today, and so much study of the sutta today, that all the other schools will look back into their roots. Because whatever school of Buddhism there is, the roots always go back to early Buddhism, the Indian Buddhism of the Buddha. We can never reject that. If you reject that, there's no Buddhism. So what I'm saying, no matter what you believe, the cultural aspects, if they're good, you can go on with them. But you need to go back to the spiritual roots. Without the spiritual roots, there's no spiritual life. So as long as you go back to the spiritual roots, whichever cultural expression you show to Buddhism, as long as it doesn't go against the precepts, that's fine. So hopefully one day learned monks and nuns and Buddhist authorities will gather together in some kind of friendly world conference and discuss this kind of ecumenism, this kind of unity and fellowship. That will help a lot to promote the future of Buddhism on a global scale. Alright, now then the sutta continues a bit more. So this is the meaning of what the Buddha said. The meaning here spoken is thus. So Itivuttaka suttas always have a closing with a sutta. And the verse goes, Apayiko nerayiko, kapato sangabedako, wagaramo, adamato, yoga kemato dangsati, sangang samagang betoana, kapang nirayamhi pachati di. Meaning, one who falls into a state of loss, a hell being, remaining there for an eon, who splits the sangha. Like here's a kind of warning: say anyone who kind of willfully splits the sangha, brings divinity, will fall into a suffering state. Who delights in faction, stands not in the Dharma. One falls away from the security, from the yoke. You will never be enlightened because there's so much disunity and disharmony. Having split the harmonious sangha, one burns in hell for an eon, for a world cycle, in other words. So these are very strong warnings not to break up the sangha, in other words. So then the reciter Kajukuttara closes and says, this matter or meaning was spoken by the Blessed One, thus have I heard. So these are very troubling teachings which we need to be mindful of so that we do not commit such teachings. Now let's close on the happy side. Okay? So today generally you still see this kind of samadhi, this kind of fellowship, friendliness, even ecumenism amongst the various Buddhist schools. We have, for example, a Theravada monk, scholar monk who specializes translating suttas, also knows Chinese, and he's working with this Chinese Buddhist university in Taiwan, and where people are also studying the suttas, and they are also translating the first two volumes of the Chinese Tipitaka. The Chinese Tipitaka is huge, much bigger than the Pali Tipitaka. The first two volumes they're called Agamas. The others are Chinese, what we call Mahayana Sutras. Only the first two volumes of the whole collection, they preserve what are called the Agamas. The Agamas represents the early teachings of the Buddha. And they're translating all this into English and they're comparing this with the Pali Suttas. And this makes very interesting study to show how changes have crept in, how similarities, even identities are there, and to show that both the collections come from a common source. And this is really helpful for us to understand the early Buddhist texts. So once we have this kind of fellowship and togetherness, there is samadhi, there is fellowship, and that is a really wonderful kind of situation. So this is the happy second sutta, the Concord Sutta, Samadhi Sutta, IT 19, this is page 178. And this is spoken by the same person, Kujuttara. Kujuttara comes from the word Kuja, meaning hunchback, and her name is Uttara, okay? Uttara the hunchback. She says, this was indeed spoken by the Blessed One, spoken by the Arhat, Worthy One, thus have I heard. We choose the one thing, the one Dharma arising in the world arises for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many, for the benefit of the many, for the happiness of gods and humans. What is that one thing? Harmony or fellowship in the Sangha. Right, so this is a beautiful Sangha Samaki. For bhikshus, when the Sangha is harmonious or the Sangha has fellowship, there are no quarrels amongst one another, and also no abusing of one another, no disdaining of one another, no rejecting of one another. In such a situation, those lacking faith only gains faith, and the faithful become even more so. Right? So this is a very happy situation. This is the meaning of what the Buddha said. The meaning here is spoken thus. That is the closing verse. Sukha sangasa samati samaganang chanugaho samagarato damato yoga kema nadhang sati sanghang samagang katwana kappang saggam hi modati ti. Happy is the harmony of the Sangha, and so too the support of the harmonious. Those who delight in fellowship stay in the Dharma. They fall not from the safety of the yoke. Safety from the yoke, rather. Safety from the yoke refers to Nirvana. Having brought harmony to the Sangha, one rejoices in heaven for an eon. Well, an eon is a long time, so a whole world cycle. So here simply, even a worldly person makes an effort to unify the Sangha. It's a great blessing. The matter or meaning too was spoken by the Blessed One, thus have I heard. There is another version of this verse found in the Dhammapada 194. This is on page 178. This is very famous. This verse is given in sloka style. 4 lines, I think how many? Sukho buddhanang upado. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 syllables to the line. 4 lines of 8 syllables. That's called shloka. Okay? You can even sing this. Okay? Sukho buddhanang upado, sukha sadhamma desana, sukha sanghasa samaki, samaganang tapo sukho. So you can see a beautiful rhyme there, right? Happy is the rising of the Buddhas. Happy is the teaching of the true Dharma. Happy is the harmony of the Sangha. Happy is the austerity of the harmonious or the united. Here austerity means the practice, the 3 trainings, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, keeping of the precepts, meditation and wisdom. Dhammapada 194, right? Even the first line is a wonderful line. Sukho buddhanang upado. Arising of Buddhas in this world. We will need one Buddha to arise, and he teaches the Dharma, especially our Buddha, who was diligent in presenting the teaching in such a way that it lasts to this day. Not all Buddhas do that. Those Buddhas whose lifespans are very long, they don't do that because the Arhats live a very long time. So whereas in the case of our Buddha, his lifespan is not as long as, say, the Buddha Vipassi. Okay? So, because his lifespan is short, he makes a great effort to preserve the teachings so that teachings live on even after his passing. So, these are some interesting teachings for us to reflect on. How fortunate we are to live in a time when we still have access to the original teachings, the early Buddhist texts. So we should make every effort to fully understand this early Buddhist text before we start talking about other forms of Buddhism, so that when we do so, we actually bring greater faith and joy to people and bring greater peace in this world today. The world is not made for religion. It's religion that's kind of made for the world, so to speak. In other words, the purpose of religion is to bring peace into the world. And if religion is to bring disunity and unhappiness, something is seriously wrong. So this is why the Buddhist teachings are that of inner peace. So anyone can try to practice this inner peace, and if we do practice inner peace, we will bring a higher quality to the life we are living, whether it is on the simple life of a monk in the forest or to that of some world powerful rulers. So we have this kind of inner peace. That peace will also be blessing those around, the whole world, in fact, if we do this on a wide scale. So let us reflect on this sutta whenever we can. There's two suttas, the Sanghapita Sutta and the Sanghasamagi Sutta, IT 18 and IT 19. Okay, let us do a short reflection to close this study. To reflect on this kind of suttas, on any suttas, bring us back to recall the presence of the Buddha in our human memory. This is a great blessing to be able to have the teachings, which means that we can practice the precepts to better ourselves, to practice meditation so that we can strengthen our moral virtue in our minds, prepare ourselves for insight wisdom. And in this way we free ourselves from suffering in this world and also benefit others. Reflecting in this way is wonderful good karma. By the power of such wonderful good karma, may we be blessed with the courage and wisdom to aspire to attain at least stream winning in this life itself. By the same token, by the power of the blessing of the three jewels and our own faith in the Buddha's teaching, let us send out our loving kindness to all the beings here. Let us send out our loving kindness to all the people who have been kind to us, supportive of us. And our loving kindness to all those who are practicing the Dharma. May they see the fruit of their practice in this life itself. And also our loving kindness to our family and loved ones and friends, wherever they are. By the power of the three jewels too, let us send our loving kindness to strengthen those whom the Dharma have not touched, those who have difficulties with the Dharma, that they may see the Dharma joyfully in all its true reality in this life itself. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.